Hi, and welcome to the very, very end of week 6, English 1302. I wanted to do one more short video because teaching online classes is always a challenge, just like taking online classes is a special challenge. But when you come across a great masterpiece like Oedipus the King, it becomes a special effort to get some of the main points across. Of course, online learning is really very self-based and determined by motivation and the will of the student. But I wanted to make one more effort to kind of reach out and kind of touch some of the high points of the play with you. It's just such a fantastic play, and it's been a cornerstone of literature for 2,500 years. So let's take one more shot at this real quick, okay? Now, I've posted a lot of notes for you. Some obviously are more important than others. One of the things that you really need is that vocabulary for Greek drama. So as you review that PowerPoint, be sure to take really, really good notes. Those PowerPoints, of course, move at your own speed. So you're welcome to sit there and take as long as you need to get the information down into your notes. But what makes this play so fantastic is the fact that we have all these elements of a great play, which we pull together from various sources, both critics, ancient Grecian critics and modern critics, and other plays themselves. We look at them and we say, wow, this one makes a great play. And then you look at Oedipus and they're just all there. So we look at him as we look at this play as a wonderful example of dramatic irony. Now, dramatic irony is where the audience knows something that the characters in the text don't know, and of course, the main thing here is that Oedipus himself doesn't know that he's guilty, or he doesn't admit it. He's not willing to admit it to himself. He's not willing to realize it until it's just inevitable. Um, and you guys know what happens with the Sphinx and everything and solving the riddle. But even in solving that riddle, he foreshadows his own journey as a doomed man. And it just the pieces of the Greek drama just fit together so uh, precisely and so wonderfully. I learned something new in rereading this and reading something about it. We talked last time that Sigmund Freud used this as a basis for his theory that every child has a subconscious being very important here, a subconscious desire for the parent of the opposite sex. Every young man, every boy desires his mother, every daughter desires her father. That's a different kind of complex. Um, but it says, and one of the sources says that Sigmund Freud himself did not suffer from this complex because he spent his entire life avoiding his mother. So, yeah, it gets interesting when you start to look at different aspects of what's going on. But anyway, so let's talk about some of the key themes. Again, this is on one of your PowerPoints. We talked about fate versus free will. Fate being the absolute certainty that something's going to happen, no matter what you try to do to avoid it, it's going to happen. And this is a wonderful example of the idea that our lives are ruled by fate. And if they aren't ruled by fate itself, by the inexorable, undeniable, the irresistible force that drives the universe forward, if it's not that, then it has to be the gods. And you could argue very convincingly that Apollo is behind all of this. Apollo is the god of prophecy. He's also the god of truth and the god of music. And well, it may have been him who made the original prophecy about Oedipus, which is then given to Tiresias, who was a blind prophet, a seer who's blind. That's that's some irony right there. But maybe he made the prophecy, then checks in on humanity a few years later, realizes it's not going to happen. So he steps in to do things which causes the prophecy to come true. If not, maybe it's just dumb luck. We don't know. There's not a lot to argue for free will in this because, again, Oedipus does pretty much everything he can to not fulfill the prophecy, and yet it still comes true. Um, we talk about sight versus blindness. We talk about the perfect tragedy. This is such a wonderful example of peripetetia, which is reversal of fortune. In the last video, I asked, why did Oedipus blind himself rather than kill himself like his wife did? The reason is well, first of all, he had placed a curse on whoever committed this crime in an attempt to find the murderer of his father and solve the plague upon the city. So he placed that curse on the person, which turned out to be him. But also, this is the worst punishment that he can imagine. To be dead, it's just over. But to be blind means he has to go without sight from house to house, begging for enough food to stay alive. Every day is torture. Every day is hunger. Every day is uncertainty and darkness. Now, his daughter, if you read the next play called Antigone, his daughter does go with her father to help lead him around, but she also limits herself to a life of destitution and poverty because of her father's sins. And these were very grave sins. In our culture, this would be an episode on Jerry Springer or TikTok or something. But in their culture, this was just like the gravest and most terrible thing that could possibly happen. And especially when you consider that he may have done this himself. I'll let you decide that. But it's Oedipus Rex is just a really great play because of the themes, because of how well it defines what a perfect tragedy is. And when you look at the vocabulary words after you've read the play the first time, you realize how neatly it dovetails in. It's just a great play. So be sure you know the characters. Be sure you have a good idea of the plot before you start reading the play, assuming you haven't already. Then look over the Greek vocabulary words, and those you don't really so much have to know as just recognize them. Um, in class, we were talking about what's the difference between a tragic hero and a Byronic hero. A tragic hero is one who has, of course, an internal or inherent flaw which leads to his destruction. Although, in the discussion question for last week, I asked, was the guy who went sailing around, was Odysseus a tragic hero? And about half the class pointed out, well, not really, because he didn't suffer a downfall. Now, his life did have a lot of ups and downs, and so the down part could have been a result of his pride. And so, in that sense, he would have been a tragic hero, but he ultimately came out on top. But yeah, he would have been more of a Byronic hero. When we think of Byronic heroes, you think of people who have flawed pasts that create um, problems in themselves, which lead to their current problems. I always think of characters like Batman and Iron Man. Iron Man, of course, as you know, was an alcoholic, and that caused a lot of problems both in his relationships and in his superhero stuff. Batman was all about fear because his parents were killed in front of him, and so his whole life is all about revenge for the death of his parents. And so, yeah, when you look at their history, it's fascinating. And of course, those are all fictional characters, but those are comic book characters. Well, I don't know. Would comic books be considered literature? Maybe not great literature, but certainly common literature of the group. So anyway, look at the vocabulary words, reread the play, take notes as you read the play. At the very least, highlight the important parts, and I hope you enjoy it. It's really good. Now, this is one of the rare occasions where reading the play is probably more beneficial than watching the play. You could watch the play on video, but it's not as tense. It's not as effective as just reading it. Reading it, you get to move at your own pace. You get to see the whole thing, because no matter which video you watch and which version you watch, you're only getting one person's interpretation. That's the video's director. And so sometimes they leave out important stuff. I watched a video where they completely left out the whole thing with the monster and him solving the riddle of the Sphinx. They left that out entirely. Another one they kind of tend to leave out. Uh, like the Greek chorus coming in, waving the hyssop and the palm branches, and seeking, asking for help. They tend to leave out some things so they can focus on other things. which makes a good video, but it doesn't give the viewer access to all the information. So read the play. I think you'll really get more out of it. Know the characters, have a good idea of the plot, read the play, look at the vocabulary words, and I think you'll do well in. Plus, it'll give you, by doing that, it'll give you a chance to get a head start on the second response paper. Let me remind you, I am here available and happy to help. If you will just shoot me an email and just ask me, is this topic specific enough for the second response paper? Be sure and tell me which class you're in. English 2332. Just say, is this a good topic? Is this specific enough? How would you further narrow this, or can you give me some good examples on that? I'm happy to help, especially if it's something I can answer quickly. And if not, you'll just have to wait to get back to the office. But I'll still answer your questions. It's just a matter of how long or when it gets answered. So enjoy the play. Have a good weekend. And I'll meet you back here next week.